Good morning. I'm Coach Willoughby from Buckhorn High School in New Market, Alabama. We're a 6A high school in the state of Alabama, the second largest classification in the state. We currently have about 1,400 students, grades 9 through 12 in our building. We typically average about 100 kids in our program, grades 9 through 12. I'm here to talk to you this morning about and how we install and teach the 30 stack. I've been running this defense since 2008. Some of this stuff is of my own creation, but a lot of it is from gentlemen like Ron Roberts. I spent some time visiting with him when he was the head coach at Delta State, now the DC at Baylor, and some other folks. Jim Crimmer that was at Mountain Brook High School in Birmingham, Alabama. So I've begged, borrowed, and stolen, and then we've tweaked and twisted and turned stuff to make it fit our personnel over the years. So we're the Buckhorn Bucks, so we try to tie everything in with our mascot, hence the Rack Reaper defense. The kids like the name, and so we try to come up with some catchy terms for positions and that sort of thing. If you're looking for a different way to get buy-in with your kids, that's an easy way to do it. Kids seem to like that stuff that adults believe is corny. So now we'll get started. I'm going to bore you a little bit in the beginning with kind of what we're about, what we like to do, and I hope that will help you understand our installation and teaching as we go along. Our defensive objectives are like any other defense in the country. We want to prevent the points, force turnovers, hopefully score on Friday night, and force the ball back to the offense in great field position. Now, how we reach these objectives is through mayhem. We want to create mayhem on Friday night for our opponents. And how do we do this? First, we've got to be in great shape. Because our standard is to fly to the ball, and as we say, your commitment level is measured by your closeness to the ball. We look for 5 hats in the final frame on any kind of run plays. And of course, you're not going to get that on a vertical ball downfield, but anytime it's run in the box, perimeter, or short passing game, we want our standard is a minimum of 5 in the final frame. We feel like pursuing to the football and gang tackling wears our opponent out as the game goes on. We really focus on being great in fundamentals and techniques. Personally, I feel like when you get tired, your fundamentals are the first thing to go. So we really exaggerate teaching those fundamentals in practice. And overemphasize that stuff. We do a lot of drill work where we put our players in a defeated position to start the drill to make practice tougher than it is on Friday night. And our main focus there is beating blocks and tackling. If you can't tackle, you're not going to get a lot of reps on Friday nights with us. We aside from the corners, where we may be able to play somebody that's not as good a tackler, those 9 guys that make up the core, they've got to be guys that are not afraid to go get it on Friday nights. We're simple but multiple. We teach a whole part whole learning style. We'll give them big picture, break it down into parts, and then bring it back together again. And then I'll focus on a lot of reps. We try to create confusion through a lot of movement in the skies. Just yesterday, my coaching mentor called me and said, I don't want to talk behind your back, so I'll call and tell you. He said, my new offensive line coach that I hired worked at a school that you guys played last year. And he said, after they played you that he had to go back and revisit his pass protection because of the movements and disguises that we were using. It was creating problems for their pass protection rules, so he had to go back and remount how he did things. So that's just one testament to it. But I like to feel that everybody feels that way when they face us. Got to be communicators. We've got to all be on the same page to kind of make it work, because there's a lot of moving parts and there's a lot of moving around to create that confusion in disguise. So guys have got to be able to communicate, can't be quiet on the field. And we want to put the pressure to the offense. We want them to have to adjust to us. We're going to try to attack folks in a way that gets them off their call sheet and makes them put plays in their pocket. Sometimes it looks helter-skelter, but I can assure you it's all calculated, from picking up weakest player to the guy that we've got to stop offensively to what the tendencies tell us. So it does look reckless at times, but it is calculated. We try to create mismatches and exploit those. It's pretty easy to find out who the quarterback club president's son is. He's usually a center or a guard on the offensive line. So we try to pick on those guys with our pressure. And we also try to protect our guys using pressure. I've had kids over the years that were very good athletes. For instance, a linebacker he's just not there yet in his development of making his linebacker reads. So he's not fitting correctly, but you can still get playing time out of him, because now you can put him in and he's kind of a designated blitzer. You kind of make your calls that make him live, so that you can get his athleticism on the field while you continue to rep weekly and practice those fundamentals and techniques till he gets to where he can be an every down player or a guy that you don't have to blitz every time. So it allows you to hide folks as well. We defend formations. We want to stop what they do best out of those formations and defend their best players, taking them away with scheme. For instance, a zone read team, if the back is the better athlete, the more dangerous guy, we're going to make calls to always have the quarterback pull the ball from his belly, hopefully, and vice versa. If the quarterback's a dual threat guy and somebody that we don't want to have running on grass, we'll dictate it for him to deal it. At least that's our intent. We try to, in all this mayhem, we try to really be efficient in our preparation with attention to detail and try to work smarter than our opponent. We're also a situational defense, so first and second down, we're going to try to stop the run. We're going to play to the tendencies, and that's not just run and pass. We've got several tendencies that we compile on folks to make calls on Friday night. Third and fourth down, our objective is to get off the field. Backed up and red zone is similar to everybody else. 4 minute and 2 minute. 4 minute is an eternity in high school football, the way the clock is. So we really don't see much change in our opponents offensively. Last 4 minutes of the half or last 4 minutes of the game. 2 minute, though, we do. We'll see some folks that'll go to a little hurry up, no huddle, NASCAR type stuff. What we've seen is most folks will stay in the same formation, change the plays until they get a clock stoppage, and then they'll change the formation. So we work on that in practice to prepare for that. And if we get no huddle, we have some built-in autos in our defense so that we don't flinch. We just play our calls. And that's where it goes back to that communication that I was talking about. You got to be willing to talk and communicate so that we're all on the same page, because it really doesn't matter what you're running in a hurry up, no huddle situation as much as it does that everybody's running the same thing. And then of course those points protecting the lead and sudden change. and I won't get into those. How we are built. We're a left and right defense. We don't flip personnel. A kid that plays our left dog can also play our right dog, and the way we substitute on Friday nights, a lot of times that happens. We try to play as many kids as we can. It's my belief as a coach, my personal philosophy, if a kid shows up and puts in the work, I'm going to try to get him on the field, and that helps you keep him engaged in practice during the week and keeps him in the pursuit of being the best football player that he can be if he's getting some rewards on Friday night. So we really don't have starters. If I'm not going to lose my mind when I see somebody trotting in the game, they're basically a starter for us. We base out of a 4-0-4 front, but like I said earlier, we're multiple. We're going to get in multiple fronts. We're going to line up in them and stem out of them. We're going to stem to them. But we're going to be moving around a lot. Our linebackers count rules, no matter how much experience they have, are heels at 5. We do that because it allows us to do some things in our fits that we feel benefit us, and that's a talk for another day. But we have an overhang defender to each side, and we're a middle of the field closed coverage structure. We can make all of our calls in 6 ways. We can call it to the running back, away from the running back, to the formation, away from the formation, from the field, or from the boundary. And we have a drill that we do every day in pre-practice where we work those, and I'll show that to you as we get into the presentation. But it gives us 6 different ways to make our calls on Friday nights. What we look like, again, we're a 4-0-4, so our backers are going to be stacked in a 40, double alt 40 look. Our overhang players, they're shown here in a head-up position. Their heels are also at 5. Whether number 2's on the line or off the line, we're going to be heels at 5. Corners are going to line up 6 to 7 yards off, and we play divider rules because we play a lot of cover 3, cover 1, 3 match. So we use the divider that Saban, Belichick use. Now we simplified it for high school. It doesn't matter if the ball's on the hash or the ball's in the middle of the field. Our divider rule is the top of the numbers because that's a landmark that is always on the field on Friday nights, and it's on our practice field. So if that number 1 receiver is outside the top of the numbers, means he's standing in the numbers or to the boundary, we're going to be inside leverage because we can't count on safety help. If he's inside the top of the numbers, then we're going to be outside leverage because we feel like we can count on safety help. And that same leverage rule applies for those overhang players too. If you got 2 into the boundary and both of them's outside the numbers, general rule would be we're going to be inside leverage on that as well. But it also depends on what somebody does because if they're doing that to run into the boundary, we may adjust what we do so that we don't get out leveraged and have 2 guys outflanked on the edge. Free safety is going to stand about 10 to 12 yards. He's an alley runner. I tell him he's a run first player, pass defender second. Those overhangs are our force guys, so he's going to fit inside of them. But like any other defense, we give those overhangs the freedom that if they can beat the number 2 inside to force the play, go ahead, and it'll be the safety's job to make him right. So if he goes inside and gets pinned, we'll fit outside of him. Cracker place rule, and that's kind of how we're structured. The linebackers make the D-line right, and the secondary makes the linebackers and the D-line right. So hopefully we're wrong fewer times than not. Installation schedule. We're always going to bring 4 on Friday night. So day 1 is 4 mans with cover 3. We have 4 line movements that we run with our 4-man stuff, and we have 1 of 5 possible stunners, which gives us 20 pressures. How we call that is we'll give a line direction call plus the live player. And then the kids need to know who's live. And our rule on that is we've always got to have a COP player, contain on pass. So I'll get into that in a little bit of how we determine who's live for the simplicity of that. Day 2, we'll hit the 4 mans again, and we'll work cover 1 rat concept. Those linebackers that are in the box, we're gonna banjo rat the back. And then day 3, we're gonna move into our 5 mans, which we run cover 3 hot behind, and we do run some straight man behind those. As I said earlier, we're a left and a right defense. So in our 5-man concepts, to cut down on verbiage, we just have a 1-word call with the coverage, and we label everything school is to the left side of our defense, and the mascot is to the right, and we mirror our calls so that what we do on the left is the exact same call that we would do on the right side of the defense. We do have some calls that are not school and mascot name. That'd be our double dogs, which we can get 6 pressures out of those, and our double bucks, which gives us 6 pressures. And then our combos, a combination between an outside stack linebacker and an overhang in the Mike linebacker, or an outside stack in the Mike, and that gives us 12 pressures. Day 4, we're going to roll in and we're going to talk about those same 5 mans, and we're going to rep those same 5 mans, but with man behind it. And then day 5, we'll install our cover 3 match, because I feel like we've covered cover 3 and we've covered man. So now that match is kind of combining those 2 covers together. And then day 6, we add our 6 mans in with cover 0, and we'll run some eyes coverage, which is 3 deep, 2 under. That's kind of the hot topic that's going on this clinic season and last year. So we'll run some eyes behind that. And our 6 mans, we just create those by taking a 5-man pressure and adding a tag. Line movements. We have 6 of these. We only use 4 of them in our 4-man pressures. Again, holding true to our rule that we're always going to have a contain on pass player, or a kit player, as I like to call it. Keep it in the tube. Meaning the quarterback, here's an example of a left call. We're going to slant to the near hip of those guards. And that's the guy that we're playing. So when you get into teaching your double teams how to play a double team block, your guard is your post player, and the center or the tackle would be your swing player. So that's your pressure guy. That's going to be the guy that you're going to put your butt into. But we're keying the hip on movement, and we're slanting to the hip and then reacting off of what that hip does. The end that we're slanting to, he's basically stepping out at a 45 and attacking the outside third of that offensive tackle. And then he is reacting to the block that he gets from the offensive tackle. Here's a right call, same coaching points on those. And a loop. Loop it starts with a L, so that tells our nose to go left, and it has a couple of O's in it, so that tells our ends to go outside. So we're basically we're slanting or stepping to a 5 technique. And rope is the same call, but the nose to the right. Slap, we're putting everybody inside. Slap has an L in it, so the nose is going left, and then pinch sends the nose to the right, and both ends inside. So these last two looks basically give us double threes. You can pretty much say a bear front, so to speak. And the reason why we don't run any four-man pressures with these last two line movements is because we would only have one contain-on pass player. And being an 0-4-3 guy from back in the day, I've got to have a contain-on pass on both sides. I'd lose my mind if we didn't have that. How we teach it. We teach it in a process of board, barrels, indie, group, team, and pursuit. Board is basically what it says. We're gonna put it on the board either in PowerPoint or draw it up, or we'll walk through it on grass. We'll take the classroom outside and do an old-fashioned chair drill. But we're gonna give the whole picture. I feel like this kind of helps us out with a little bit of accountability. If the defensive line group knows that everybody else on the defense knows what they're supposed to be doing, then it creates a little accountability for them to be right, because they don't want to let anybody down, and vice versa. The defensive line knows what the linebackers and the secondary is supposed to be doing, so it kind of creates a little bit of accountability there in the whole picture. Plus, I think teaching the whole thing first aids when you get into the teaching the individual parts. So we handle that in two ways, classroom and walkthrough. Now, anytime we're going to install something in that board section, I send it out either in a Google Doc. I'll share the slide beforehand, or I'll put a PDF on Huddle, or draw it up in Huddle Playbook, and I'll share it with the kids so they get a look at it before we get in there and draw it up and talk about the nuances of it. So they get a paper version or a visual version of it before they even get to the classroom. And then we head out to the field. And in our pre-practice period every day, we have a barrels drill. We do a mirror drill, and I've got a slide for that. That has really benefited us from a standpoint. We're able to get a lot of reps in a short period of time. Our kids are able to teach themselves, so to speak, to know when they're right, know when they're wrong, and help one another out. And it allows us as coaches to have a better view of what they're doing for anybody that's got any missteps. And that's been a very successful drill for us. It's really sped up the teaching and learning process for our kids. And then we follow that up with we'll go to Indy and we work on the techniques to execute our scheme. And then we get a second part of teaching where we go to group. So as you can see, we did whole in the board in the classroom. We did whole again in barrels. Then when we got to Indy, we went back to a part, teaching it in parts. And then in this group, it's kind of a combination of part whole. So in the group periods, we work inside and perimeter, skelly and blitz pickup. So whatever our calls are for the day, we're going to run those in those periods, and we're going to get live reps with it against various blocking schemes. Then we kind of bring the whole thing back together again in the team period. We do some best on best segments, and then versus scout team, and then pup, pass under pressure. And then we wrap practice up with another teaching period as we rep our pursuit drill, and we run a 4-rabbit drill, and I have that drawn up for you. we'll explain at the end. Here's our mirror drill. This is what we're going to start practice off with every day. We set 6 barrels up 5 yards apart, or 10 yards apart rather. We put two cones down, those little frisbee cones down for the guards, because it allows us to still identify gaps, but not as much cumbersome stuff to get in the way so kids don't get hurt. We'll line the 1s up on one side and the 2s up on the other side. We'll call out a formation, say we got 2 by 2. The 2 coaches there in the middle, one is facing the 1s and one is facing the 2s. And we designate one as quarterback and one as running back. Secondary coach and I will watch the back end rotation on both groups. But here is an example of America's Blitz, and here we're calling it to the back. One of those 6 ways that we can call a pressure. And the reason why we call this mirror drill is when we make the call America's Blitz to the back, it's on the left side for one group, but it's on the right side of our defense for another group. So if you know anything about military personnel and guard and fence, or you watched A Few Good Men and those Marines sitting on a fence across from their Cuban counterparts, their mirror, as they call it, that's where we got the name for it. So as I finish my portion of the call, I should be looking at my mirror, the guy on the other side of the ball. And as you see there, nose is looking at the nose. The away side end is facing the away side end, the long sticking end. He's looking at his mirror. The buck coming through the B gap, they're both looking at one another as they come through, and then the dogs are meeting up off the edge. So we'll go through all of our calls, and one day we'll do it to the back, one day we'll do it away from the back. Sometimes we'll combo it up as the kids get better at it, but we're going to take each one of the ways that we can make a call as we go through and fall count to make sure that we've got it down, and then we start to rock and roll with a little comboing it up as far as how we call it. You see on the back end we're running, this is a call, since it's a 5-man pressure, we'd be running our 3 hot coverage. So there's some pre-snap rotation once the quarterback gets in a position and we've gotten his indicator of what he's going to do before he gets the snap. The coach that is playing the role of quarterback will give that indicator, and we will start to stem and move. So I coach the safeties, and my corners coach, we're each watching a group of secondary for their rotation and making sure we're rotating right. And we've also added in, like, if I'm the 2-seam player, meaning I'm the seam player to the 2 receiver side, as I'm going out, I want them to echo 2-seam so that they're verbalizing what their job is. And if they say something wrong, we can correct it. But this has been a really good addition to our practice schedule. We usually keep it to a 10-minute pre-practice period, and we get a bunch of reps. And we work the 1s and the 2s. If we have any 3s that are going to see action on Friday night, we'll have them stand behind the 1s instead of the 2s, and they will mimic the same call. So we'll kind of tailgate that stuff so that they get reps as well. Next, we got a couple other periods in practice that we do, but now we've gotten to the inside perimeter drill part. And we try to kill 2 birds with 1 stone and do both these drills at the same time and rotate halfway through. So much like the mirror drill, We'll set up inside drill on one end, then give us some space so that we can conduct perimeter drill. So I'll take the ones and we'll work inside drill, and the twos will be working the perimeter drill. And as you see here, the personnel that's involved in that. And the way we do it is we will make a call for inside run, and we'll execute that call versus the play. And we'll film that, and then the same call is made for perimeter drill. And in perimeter drill, they'll throw an RPO out there, a bubble screen to 2. They'll run speed option. They'll kick a guy in motion and run jet sweep. And so what we want to do there is we want to vary the calls from left to right, or the offensive play from left to right, so we get an opportunity to work both sides equally during the drill. Then at the halfway point of that drill, whether it be if it's a 15-minute period, we'll go at 7.5 and rotate. If it's 20, we'll rotate at 10s. And because we're on the same field, the same area, now the twos come down the inside and the ones go work perimeter drill. So we get about 15 to 20 minutes there where we're working inside run and perimeter drill. And just like that mirror drill, we mirror the calls when we call them. So if we call America's Blitz and inside drill, as soon as that rep's over, we're turning around and calling America's Blitz and perimeter drill. And we're going to run that blitz, and then we have to react to whatever the perimeter play is, whether it be a bubble, speed option, jet sweep, any of that stuff. And that's been a good drill for us. It allows us to get a lot of reps, and our contact is different in those. Early in fall camp, we may get a little contact in inside drill, but most of the time it's a thud. The perimeter, we will thud in that occasionally, but most of the time that's a tag off. We're just working the geometry of a tackle, making sure we're taking correct angles, making sure we're inside leg and outside leg on the ball carrier, and that we have a capper. So that's kind of a drill that we can use two different ways. And every once in a while, like I say, we'll thud on it. So we're running through contact on that. And the reason why we thud, since we're talking about teaching and install and practice stuff, is we got a couple of kids banged up early one year, and we backed off the contact. And it showed up in tackling on Friday nights because we went to a tag off. You know, we're gonna take our angles and tag off on the hip. Well, on Friday nights we were tagging off. No matter how many tackling drills we did in Indian and tackle circuits, we would get to that hip and we were kind of stopping to tag off. And so on Friday nights, we started getting a lot of arm tackles. We were reaching instead of stepping on their toes. We were reaching for those guys. So we will do the tag off, and we've changed our philosophy on tag off to we're going to run to that guy and try to body him up. We're not going to make contact, but we don't want any arms involved in it. We just, kind of like think of a chest bump. We just want to go bump that guy with our chest. And we think that has helped us out in that respect. Then we'll get to Skelly and blitz pickup. We do this together as a group, offense versus defense, ones on ones, twos on twos situation. Say we set this up on the 50-yard line. The coach's box is from 45 to 45. We'll put the ball down on the 35-yard line. We'll have offensive line, quarterback, and running backs on the blitz pickup side, and all the guys that are possible blitzers. And then on the other side, we have the fire hose to denote our offensive line. And then offensively, they're working on their passing game. And again, we're all about mirror. So we're going to call a blitz and blitz pickup. And we're going to rep that blitz. And all the coaches are going to watch it so that we make sure we're right. And as soon as that rep is over, us coaches just turn around to the Skelly side, and I call the same blitz with the coverage behind it. So now we're repping that coverage in Skelly. And, you know, if it's a two-backer blitz, they're just going to walk down and take a knee so they're out of the way in case the offense is running any mesh routes. But I want them to walk down and step to the gap where they would be blitzing. So that gives them another mental rep of executing that blitz and tying it in with our coverage. And that's been really good for us. It keeps your coaches in one area so everybody can see what they need to see. Me being a safeties coach, I want to see the Skelly stuff, but me being the coordinator, I want to see the blitz stuff. I want to, see if there's something that we need to tweak in there. So setting this Skelly blitz pickup drill the way that we do it has allowed me to be two places at once. And so what we do is our film guy will film the blitz pickup, and then he will film he'll film the Skelly version of it, and then we roll on. So it's back and forth for that period. And that varies. Sometimes it's a 10-minute period. Sometimes it's a 15-minute period. But it's not a long period because we can get a bunch of reps. And the beauty of alternating like that is the D-line coach and the linebackers coach can coach up their guys on the blitz, as well as the O-line coach and the running backs coach working on the protection. They have an opportunity to coach their guys up while we're running the Skelly rep. And then when the Skelly rep's over, we get an opportunity to coach those back end guys up as they're getting ready to run another blitz. Now this gets us pretty much to the end of practice. As far as the things that I consider our installing teaching phases, this has been a really good drill for us. I got it from another coach, so it's not an original thing. We did tweak it, though. The original drill was set up where D-line chases rabbit number 1, linebackers chase rabbit number 2, dogs chase rabbit number 3, and secondary chases rabbit number 4. And we kind of took it a step further, and so we put a call on it. So we're going to execute the call, and the call that I've got drawn up here is just we're slanting right, we're bringing a buck off the edge. So this would just be a base 4-man pressure for us. We set up 3 barrels, and again put the 2 Frisbee cones down for the guard so that we don't have a lot of clutter in there, but we still have gaps to visualize. On the snap count, we're going to execute the call up front. Linebackers are going to take their read steps. And then the first rabbit is going to go on the signal. And we're going to pursue that rabbit. And as you can see, I've drawn the lines there where as we pursue, we should start breaking off. Now, we don't just stop in that area. We tell that rabbit to keep going. But for clutter purposes, I didn't draw him all the way out there. So they're going to pursue that guy, and we're trying to get to him. We don't want to touch him and interfere with him running, but we want to get to where we could touch him. And then I have a coach that signals the next rabbit. He'll tell him to go, and he'll go the opposite direction because we've got bodies flying to our right. So we're going to send him to our left, and the second rabbit's for the linebackers. So we've taken our read, step, and gather on the snout, and now we're pursuing the second rabbit, and we're going to try to tag off on him, and then about a 1 second pause in between each rabbits. The third rabbit goes, and he's for the dog. So the overhang player to the side of the third rabbit, he's working to get to the outside leg of that runner. Again, we don't want to touch him, don't want to interfere with him, because the guys that we use for runners, they're not as athletic and kind of on the clumsy side. So if you touch them, sometimes they stop running and messes up the drill. So we tell our guys, whatever you do, don't touch them. But again, we're working on the geometry of tackling. We're working to get the force to the outside leg. And then the backside dog, he's executing his open crossover and settle. And with the number 3 rabbit away, he's now in a pursuit line, and he's going to take that pursuit angle that's going to put him in a position to tag off on that guy. And then the fourth rabbit, he goes the opposite direction. And our corners, if we've got cover 3 call, they're going to scooch out, and then get into their pedal. And then when they see the runner, they're going to stick their foot and work downhill. So the corner, he's working for outside leg, because we teach those guys that we don't ever want them to give up the boundary. Free safety's running the alley. And then the backside corner, he's our last line of defense guy. And our rule for him is he's going to pursue across the field. And we want to stay in a relationship where that fourth rabbit can't cut back behind us. So we're going to stay on our side of the hash, and not jump the fence too early, so that we can continue to press the hip and use the boundary as a helper on the tackle. If that 4 rabbit pursuit drill is not clear, I'll be happy to share some film with some folks. It'll have to be once we get going a little bit. We kind of do things on the cheap around here. So we've got that small huddle package with only so many hours of storage. So what we do in the fall practice-wise, we wipe off because we're going to put new stuff on in the spring. And thanks to COVID-19, we didn't have a spring. So I'm without some practice cut-ups to share with you on this. But we will be filming this stuff when we're in helmets and shorts this summer as we start to teach it. And that's one of the things that we do in our summer preparation also, is to make things smoother in fall camp. When we get into July, we start doing more football specific things. So we'll start doing the mirror drill. We'll start doing the 4 rabbit pursuit drill, and we'll use that as part of our summer conditioning. We'll do the blitz pickup and the skelly, things of that nature. So I'll have some of that stuff on film later once we get into July. But I appreciate your time this morning. I hope it's been informative. I hope you're able to get something that will help you install. I think the mirror drill, the 4 rabbit pursuit drill, the blitz pickup and skelly, the way we mirror that, I think that's good for any scheme that you run. And it's stuff that we've kind of developed over the years as folks have joined our staff and come from other places. They brought tidbits of information in, and we've tweaked it to make it work for us and added things to it. And it's all about getting those reps, because as you can see in that install period, we're going to get mental reps on the board. We're going to get game speed walkthrough on the barrel drill. We're going to rep those same pressures again in inside and perimeter drill. And then we're going to hit them again in blitz pickup and skelly. And then in our team scenarios, we'll be running those as well. And then again, we make calls in that rabbit drill. And as a side note on the rabbit drill, we'll run ones first. They'll chase the rabbit, and then the twos pop out there, and we will run the exact same call. We may send the rabbits in a different direction. My defensive line coach runs the rabbits, so sometimes he likes to send that first rabbit opposite the way the defensive line is slanting, so they have to change direction and chase. They hate it, but it helps us on Friday nights. And it's a really good deal. Been a really good deal for us, and it helps us on the pursuit, and to also help us on the pursuit and getting 5 hats to the ball. We'll call those kids' names out in practice when we're in those situations where we're monitoring that, and we're going to keep up with it off of practice film. We get 5 hats to the ball. We're going to try to celebrate that as much as we possibly can out on the field to let those kids know that we are paying attention to that, we're just not popping smoke on the 5 hats to the ball. We also make a big deal out of turnovers too. So if we cause a fumble, get one, PBU a pass in skelly, we're hooping and hollering that, that we had a mayhem play. Another thing that we do, I don't have a slide for, but I think it's beneficial in practice, is defensively we will score everything. So if we're doing a skelly and the wide receiver drops the ball and it hits the ground, we're scooping it and returning it. Now, for time purposes, we're not going to run it all the way to the other end or wherever, but we're going to run it back to the line of scrimmage and toss the ball back to the offense. If we PBU one and knock it away and it hits the ground, we want somebody scooping it and returning it. That has helped us in being situationally aware. The ball's on the ground, so let's get it. And that's instead of it being oh wow, there's the football. We try to implement that in practice where it becomes second nature. Ball's on the ground, we're gonna pick it up. We're gonna let the referee blow the whistle and go, no, it's dead, it's incomplete, whatever. But that's an opportunity for us in practice to work a scoop and score again, the whole 9 yards. And if we get a pick in skelly, or we recover a fumble and inside a perimeter drill, we're gonna score that also, and we're gonna chart it and let them know how many mayhem plays we had and how many times we scored on defense, and we celebrate those guys in our meeting time the next day before practice. And sometimes they get a pack of crackers or a candy bar or a Powerade or popsicle, something like that as a reward. But those are some things that have helped us in teaching our kids, getting the high reps, that muscle memory. We don't have to think as much. On Friday nights, it becomes second nature, and because our calls are mirrored, for instance, like that America's Blitz, it's the same blitz. I may sub in a guy at right dog, and then 3 plays later, I bring the original player back in for him and tell him the sub to bump over to the left side and let that guy come out and rest. And we do a lot of rotational subbing like that. So if you know what to do on the left side, you're doing the exact same thing on the right side. So once we teach it, we're not having to teach anything new. Here's my contact information. my email, my Twitter. It's probably hard to see on this slide, but that's at Coach WI1L. My cell phone number is at the bottom. I enjoy talking ball. I'd be glad to share anything that I have with anybody. That's how I learned what I know, is by people sharing and passing along. I don't have any secrets. Most of this stuff somebody else is doing, you're probably already doing. But it's, I feel that makes our profession better. A shout out to Coach Bandstra for doing this. It gives old guys like me an opportunity to put ourselves out there to the public, so to speak. And in this day and time, that's really hard for a lot of people because of the criticism that goes on. If you're not playing the coverage the way I'm playing it, you're an idiot. And I look at it this way, guys. There's 1,000 ways to skin a cat. You just got to pick the way that you believe in, and you got to sell your guys on it and skin the cat that way. Be glad to talk ball with anybody. Shoot me an email. I'll share this brief presentation with you, PowerPoint with you. Share some other stuff that I have. I'm on Twitter quite often. You can hit me up on Twitter in a DM. If you follow me, I'll follow you back. Or you can shoot me a text, and if you want to talk some ball, we can jump on a Zoom and do a one-on-one or whatever, and we can talk more about scheme. But I hope you got something out of how we install our 30 stack and teach it at Buckhorn High School. And I appreciate your time. Y'all have a good day.